Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, August 29th. We still have Hurricane Franklin out there over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. It remains a major hurricane, and now Idalia has reached hurricane status with a maximum sustained winds at 75 miles per hour. It is likely to reach major hurricane status, probably Category 3, before making landfall early Wednesday up the Gulf Coast of Florida. We'll talk about the positioning over the next few minutes here. This is the latest infrared, a long wave infrared satellite imagery loop from the College of DuPage weather website. First of all, here is Franklin's, still a major hurricane, very symmetrical looking, very well defined eye. It will bypass Bermuda, the island of Bermuda, to the north and west, and then continue on a path out into the open waters of the North Atlantic. A strong upper level trough will sweep across the northeastern part of the nation, the southeastern part of Canada, and the southwesterly flow of air in the upper part of the atmosphere associated with that trough will help to steer Franklin out into the open waters of the North Atlantic. Meanwhile, Idalia now has spilled out over into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. It is starting right now to likely develop an eye. Certainly there's an eye wall now starting to form right in this region, and it will undergo more and more favorable conditions in the atmosphere for strengthening. The shear will diminish over the next several hours as it pushes to the north. Ridging develops overhead in the eastern Gulf of Mexico over the next 6 to 12 hours or so, and that should allow Idalia to continue to grow and likely reach major hurricane status, probably Category 3 by the time it makes landfall, probably sometime early tomorrow morning, right in this part of Florida. Again, possibly as a major hurricane up the Gulf Coast of Florida. Well, here is the latest official positioning by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. They're based, by the way, down in Miami, Florida. Island of Bermuda right here, and Franklin will continue on a track in this direction to the north and west of Bermuda, and then out over the open waters of the North Atlantic. Very well could have an impact on the United Kingdom, let's say in 6 or 7 days or so, way up here in the North Atlantic. But again, an incoming trough will help to steer this system from the southwest to the northeast over the next few days. Meanwhile, Idalia developed first in the western part of the Caribbean Sea right here. Now it's kind of spilled out over into the southeastern part of the Gulf of Mexico, where the waters, by the way, are very warm, above normal for this time of the year. And it looks like it is now Category 1 hurricane, but it has a chance to reach all the way up to major hurricane status, Category 3, before a likely landfall right in this region right here early tomorrow morning. So it'll continue basically on northward track into the early morning hours on Wednesday. And again, should strengthen over the next 6 to 12 hours or so as it encounters more and more favorable conditions for strengthening. Namely, the wind shear will diminish over the next several hours as high pressure ridging aloft moves overhead in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. After that, it looks like it'll ride up to the north and east, and because of a building ridge to its north, it will tend to stall out or at least meander around when it finally reaches off the coast of the Carolinas. May in fact just meander around and kind of loop back around and potentially come back and visit Florida again in several days, and we'll talk about that over the next few minutes as we go through the 0Z run of the GFS. Well, indeed, let's take a look at the 0Z run of the GFS. It's the operational version. What we're looking at are 500 millibar heights, not the anomalies, but the actual heights. And this area here represents a trough in the upper part of the atmosphere. Here is the reflection of Franklin at the 500 millibar level, and here is Idalia down here now over the southeastern part of the Gulf of Mexico. This trough over the northeast U.S. right here slides to the east over the next 24 to 48 hours or so, and southwesterly flow of air on the eastern side of that trough will help to steer Franklin out into the open waters of the North Atlantic, and certainly preventing it from ever reaching the New England coastline, for example. It will be captured by that incoming trough over the northeast U.S., over the southeastern part of Canada, and basically forced out into the open waters of the North Atlantic. By the way, here is Bermuda. They're liable to have some tropical storm conditions, but certainly not a direct hit by Franklin, which again continues as a major hurricane this morning. Meanwhile, early tomorrow morning looks like pretty likely landfall right in this part of Florida's Gulf Coast region. And this trough will continue to move in this fashion here. We'll see what happens over the next few days as high pressure ridging tends to expand from the west to the east across the southern half of the nation here after that trough exits off the northeast U.S. coastline. So here we go by tomorrow morning, by Thursday morning, the system will likely have moved from right in this part of Florida to the eastern part of South Carolina again by Thursday morning. Notice trough exiting off the southeast U.S. coastline, ridging starting to really build over the eastern U.S. And here we go, by the time we get to Friday morning, what remains of Idalia pushes off the Carolina coastline, and with that ridge kind of building to its west and to its north, this system will just meander around for a couple of days, and in fact may loop back around in this fashion and revisit Florida in several days. Let's keep moving forward here in time here. Again, this is now the forecast map for Friday morning, and here we go. It's just meandering around here. Probably tropical storm status, and may reinvigorate and climb back to hurricane status, but look at it dropping to the south, and ultimately it could revisit Florida. We're now all the way out into the early part of next week. Monday morning forecast map here, and here is what remains of Idalia at that particular time, with a lot of ridging out across the eastern U.S., all the way extending up into the southeastern part of Canada. We'll go out another 24 hours or so. And here we go. By 1 week from right now, looks like we may be dealing with the remnants of Idalia back in Florida. Again, 1 week away. So it moves from the southeastern part of the Gulf of Mexico to landfall early tomorrow morning right in this part of Florida's Gulf Coast, then slides to the north and east, starts to encounter that building ridge aloft after the departure of the trough over southeastern Canada, and it'll meander around and kind of tend to loop around here for a few days, and could actually revisit Florida in about a week's time. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps, again using the 0Z run of the GFS. Here we are, beginning of the day here on Tuesday, August 29th. Franklin, right here. Bermuda, by the way, right here. This is Idalia, now a hurricane, maximum sustained wind 75 miles per hour, basically moving north and encountering more and more favorable atmospheric conditions for intensification. Here we go by later today, less and less wind shear aloft, allowing for intensification, and it's moving over very warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And here we go by tomorrow morning, perhaps Category 3 major hurricane as it makes landfall, likely right in this part of the Gulf region of Florida. Again, this is the Wednesday morning forecast map by the GFS. Most models tend to agree with the general idea of an intensification through the day today and a landfall early tomorrow right in this part of Florida. Meanwhile, Franklin is starting at this point to, first of all, bypasses Bermuda to the north and west, and will get captured by that upper level trough to the north and push it from southwest to northeast out into the open waters of the North Atlantic. Meanwhile, ridging will start to build in. There'll certainly be a strong surface high pressure system building into the mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S. Wednesday and Thursday, and that will tend to slow down the advancement to the north of Idalia by the time we get to Thursday afternoon, about 48 to 60 hours from right now. It'll be likely right along the Carolina coastline and not advancing to the north any longer because of the strong ridging that forms over the northeast U.S. And we saw aloft high pressure ridging really tends to build into the west and to the north over the latter part of the week into the upcoming weekend, and that could force the remnants of Idalia to loop back around, and we could potentially be dealing with the remnants of Idalia over the Bahamas in about 6 or 7 days, and perhaps even all the way near Florida's east coast in about a week's time. Let's go all the way out to Tuesday morning. Here is the Tuesday morning forecast map, and this, believe it or not, is what remains of Idalia a week from right now, next Tuesday morning, as it is kind of forced to loop back around and potentially revisit Florida after likely landfall as a major hurricane early Wednesday morning. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.